Say it ain't so, Chester Frazier. Say it ain't so. Uh, One tweet has gotten Illinois fan base all riled up right now about Chester Frazier and possible future for the Illinois Fighting Illini basketball program. Currently, he's an assistant basketball coach for the University of Illinois. And of course, if you grew up an Illini fan and you're in your 30s, you know exactly who Chester Frazier was and what he meant to the Illinois program when he played for them. Um, but good morning, everybody that's watching on this beautiful Saturday morning. Almost you can call an emergency podcast here. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're here. Check the podcast out on Apple and Spotify. Please leave a review there, rate it, and all that stuff. If I get up to 800 YouTube subscribers, I will on social media put out where you could put your name in, and I'll send out 2 copies of it of my own dime. I wrote a book, So You Want to Be a Football Coach, Truth About Football Coaching that nobody tells you, that goes into things I kind of wish I knew as a football coach going in. Things have changed, personal stories that relate to the topic. So if you're interested, please subscribe and then follow at Coach_Steve72 and the Coach Steve Show, all on X or Twitter, whichever you call it. All that good stuff. And we'll update it as we go. Gotta get to 800 YouTube subscribers. So if you're watching it right now and you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching on X, hop over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button and all that stuff. So this is an emergency podcast just because there's a tweet that set the Illini world on fire. And I will get it there. Just give me a hot second. But it was a tweet from the voice of Morgantown, where West Virginia is, and said, breaking, West Virginia is hiring Illinois assistant coach Chester Frazier per source. Huge get. Now, the fact that it says per source makes you pause and go, okay, what is this person talking about? But here's the tweet right here. Voice of Morgantown. Breaking, West Virginia is hiring Illinois assistant coach Chester Frazier. This person also continues to tweet about Chester Frazier and says, when Chester Frazier is officially hired, watch out for 2 4-star recruits to potentially follow him to West Virginia. Jace Butler, 6'4" shooting guard, class of 24. He's already in the portal. He decommitted from Illinois already from his national intent. And then Hansberry, 6'4", 2003 Maryland Player of the Year, rumored to be in the portal soon. Now, he just is coming to Illinois. Like, how do you know he's potentially going to go into the portal? That part I don't understand. So 2 big tweets there from this account, that West Virginia's leader in news, analyst, and rumors. So right there kind of tells us, is this news? Is this a rumor? He says per source they're hiring him. But the crazy part is when you go to Chester Frazier's account, let me get there, or when you click on Chester Frazier, nothing happens. You click on Chester Frazier's Twitter, his X. I hate saying X because it sounds like you're talking about their significant other. I don't like that. But it still says he's an assistant coach at the University of Illinois, Baltimore native. Nothing else, just his personal tweet. So we'll stop there. So nothing there. When you try to find the news, there is no other thing talked about besides us similar folk that are hopping on to our own podcast. The Champagne Room, I think, did something, the 200 Club and things of that nature. So this tweet has set the world ablaze, right, for Illinois, whether it's true or not true, right? Just the fact that it could possibly be true has really set us, not a panic, but you're like, oh, no. And what I mean by that is if you are in your 30s, you know exactly what I'm talking about, watching Chester Frazier way, way back playing basketball, because he was a similar player like a D. Brown, Now, they were different, but they were also very energetic guys that didn't have to come off the court. They had their fast breaks. They had this burst of speed that nobody else really had, and in that time frame, right? And so a guy that spent his whole life at Illinois tries to do his own thing. Then he gets into coaching. And then it was just awesome that Brett Underwood hired him. I think it was 2020 or 2021 that hired him to bring him back. And so it was an awesome thing where you have a guy that dedicated his whole playing life to Illinois to come back and coach. And he's been a great addition to the coaching staff. He is a fiery guy. You watch him on the sideline. And he and D Brown were similar in that aspect. And they were just these high energetic guys on defense and offense, fast break opportunities, point guard skills. So anybody that brings the ball up the court, he's one of the best coaches for them. And tenacity on defense when you're guarding a guy full court, perfect guy to have there, high energy, always picking up, always fighting till the very end. So what would this mean if this is true, right? So let's talk about if this is possibly true, which I'm not saying it is. There's been, I expected when I saw that yesterday to wake up to more news about it, and haven't really seen anything else besides that one tweet. And again, in his bio, it says rumors. So to me, we could sit there and say, it's true, it's not true. Now, I think it could be a rumor. Maybe he interviewed. Maybe that's what happened. Who knows? But what would this mean if it was true? Could he leave Illinois? It's hard to say he would because, again, you spent your whole a portion of your young adult life at Illinois as a player. Then you come back as a coach, so it's kind of come full circle, you being an assistant coach. But the point of being an assistant coach is to hopefully one day, now some people probably are okay just being an assistant coach, because when you're just an assistant coach, you don't have to really always worry about dealing with athletic director. You don't have to deal with the chancellor or the president. You don't have to deal with all the time. Now, sometimes you do, I would say professors, but you do go to class and do class checks. Like football coaches, basketball coaches, they go to class and see if their guys are sitting in class, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, but if you're asking them to sit in the front row, that they're sitting in the front row. But when you're an assistant coach, you don't have to deal with all the fundraising stuff. You don't have to deal with these meetings. You don't have to deal with, always the media all the time. And so there's a lot of things that you don't have to deal with as a head coach. And sometimes talking to certain head coaches, they just wish they could just coach, but they have all these other things on top of their plate. But he would seem like the type of person that, kind of like Roger Powell, who also played for Illinois, now head coach of Valpo, that you would want to move up in the ranks and become a head coach, because then the buck stops with you, right? Like you get the last say on things. We're going to run this. We're going to be in this defense. It seems like Brett Underwood, though, gives his assistant coaches a lot of freedom. You see them standing up and coaching a lot. They're calling stuff out for him in situations. And I like, again, this is just the outside looking in. It looks like he tries to get those guys involved, so that way maybe one day when they do become a head coach, they've had that experience, and when they interview for it, it actually helps them. Like, okay, well, what would make you a good head coach? Well, I was in charge of all out of bounds plays, and then I was in charge of last second shots. I know Brett Underwood, being the head coach, he has final say, and there's times he's going to take over, but that helps, right? And so if that's his aspiration to become a head coach, we cannot fault him for going, if this is true, going to West Virginia, right? We cannot sit there and say, oh my gosh, you're betraying Illinois. How dare you go to West Virginia? But you have to understand that in the coaching world, and again, I'm speaking from a high school coach of 14 and a half years, and I'm speaking from being very blessed to have college coaches on here on this podcast, that you have to sometimes think of yourself. You are putting those players and the program above yourself so much, but there has to be that little part that it's about you, right? And you have to understand that if you're going to move up and have this career being a head coach is part of that checkoff list, right? For some. Now, some love just being assistant coaches, and that's totally fine. I have no idea. It seemed like Chester Frazier loves, because I'm still assuming he's at Illinois too, that he loves being at Illinois and loves what he's doing because he played here, right? Like he spent a lot of time here. But if he were to choose to go to West Virginia, become a head coach, we would have to sit back and realize he's not betraying us. It's him trying to advance his career, right? Maybe a part of his checklist box is one day becoming the head coach at Illinois. And so I don't see Brad Underwood leaving anytime soon. Philip says going to West Virginia as an assistant seems like a backwards or lateral move. Are they hiring him as an assistant, or would they hire him as a head coach, right? Like, I have no idea, right? Like, that's kind of where it's weird, right? I mean, I know they hired Darren DeVries, right? So if it was the head coach position, like if something's happening that we don't understand, become a head coach. So let me digress a little bit. Thank you, Philip. Philip on YouTube, thanks for pointing it out to me. If he goes in as an assistant, you're right. You're definitely right. Where that's a lateral move. Like, thank you, Philip. West Virginia hired DeVries from Drake as a head coach. Thank you for pointing that out. That makes it worse, right? Like, this makes it worse if he leaves Illinois to go to West Virginia as an assistant. How is this going to how would this affect Philip? Again, if you're still watching, I appreciate you for pointing this out, because I think I was in such a weird mindset of, is he going to be the head coach? Because I'm so busy. Like, I coach football, basketball, softball. I'm so busy that I can't keep up with all this all the time. Man, if he goes to be an assistant coach, that is such a you're right. That is, I'm going to put this up there again when people rewatch us or watching it now. That is a perfect point, that it seems backwards, right? West Virginia, under Higgins I thought he was a good coach. I know it ended badly, right? But West Virginia was relevant for a little bit, right? In the basketball world. Not a bad basketball place. I think it is hard to recruit there because you're in the woods. Nothing wrong with the woods. Grew up around cornfields and woods myself. But now this just changes everything. So let me reset my mind here. If he goes there to be an assistant, like, why? Why would you do that? Illinois is now put back on the map. So hopefully this is just blowing smoke on X to get us Illinois fans riled up. But to go to West Virginia or anywhere else as an assistant, that means it would, like, I talked about the possibility of Brad Underwood going to Kentucky, and now they've hired the BYU coach, Mr. Pope. But blue bloods, like I was talking about blue bloods, right? So if a blue blood basketball program goes after you, assistant or a head coach, I think you have to take a pause and actually consider it. So to me, if like a UConn hired him, Chester Frazier may have to sit there and think about it, but it would have to be the most perfect situation. Are you getting paid more? And what's your role, right? So if your role at Illinois was you're only in charge of X, Y, and Z, and you go somewhere else and they're giving you X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and it's going to help advance your career faster, that's a huge possibility that you would have to consider going there and leaving. But Illinois is now relevant again, right? Like you're competing for regular season Big Ten titles, you're winning the Big Ten title tournament. Like if guys come to Illinois, they are um, put in good situations to eventually here compete, and you're going to the NCAA tournament. And again, I always say this: if it wasn't for COVID, that team was good. They were on a hot streak. Not saying they would have won the Big Ten title by any means, but they would have made the NCAA tournament. So that just adds more to Brad Underwood's resume. Why would you leave and go be an assistant coach? Unless it's about pay, right? So to me, until I see more of this, I don't see Chester Frazier leaving. So hopefully this is just that Twitter account, just trying to fire us up a little bit and trying to stir the pot and start some rumors. I don't see how this would advance his career, more, because the Big Ten, I think, is better at basketball. Kirk Dent's voice of Morgantown is now tweeting Butler and Hansberry potentially following Frazier to West Virginia. Yeah. I tried to do research again this morning. No more other tweets besides that one were put out there. Chester Frazier's Twitter is still exactly the same, saying he's an Illinois assistant. You try to go to the noobs part on the internet, there's nothing more. So this is something that is either in the works to go, or it's getting leaked. Like Coach Calipari said that like he didn't want to be hired during the Final Four national championship because he wanted all the focus to be on those teams, which I respect. But then he said it got leaked out, which stuff gets leaked out more and more the more social media and stuff explode up. I saw that. So that's the next thing is, let's say he does go head coach, assistant, wherever he goes. Would people follow him, right? So then it becomes, is he a good recruiter, right? And I think he is. And so did he get those guys to come to Illinois? Did Brad Underwood get them? Are those guys, they're guards, and Coach Chester Frazier was a good guard for Illinois, and he helps coach those guys. Would they move on with him? So that's this domino effect of this freaking stressful transfer portal where they can just leave wherever they want, right? Like, how crazy is it that these guys say they're coming to Illinois, and then like literally maybe 4 to 5 days later, an assistant coach for Illinois leaves to be a head coach or an assistant somewhere else, and they're immediately going to just go hop right back in. Like, you've already said you're coming here and you can just leave whenever you damn well please. That is, I love the transfer portal for good reasons of family emergency, I'm homesick, my head coach leaves, something like that, right? Like that part I get, but I just hate how they can just leave whenever they want. Oh, well, Steve, you don't want them to have the opportunity. Steve, you don't want them to make the money. I want college players to make the money. I'll never forget at Eastern, walked on. I'm taking these sports classes. I'm helping out the football coaches at the time. And that NCAA rule book was so huge. And there was a dumb rule where, let's say you're in a class with a college athlete and you're in a group and you're working on a project and you say, hey, let's just go meet, where I went. Oh, let's go to Buffalo Wild Wings. You go to Buffalo Wild Wings, right? And that's where you're going to meet the first time, right? Well, let's say that college football player pays for your meal. Let's say there's 3 of you all together and he pays for your meal, right? Well, then let's say, in college you have class every other day or 3 times a week or twice a week, depending. The next time you meet, you go to, I don't know, McDonald's, right? Okay, well, you paid for my meal last time, so I'm going to buy yours. You couldn't. He had to say no, because if it got brought out that you bought something for him, he could get in trouble, because now it's like enticing, like, oh, well, I bought you something, now you owe me something. You have to do whatever, right? Like, and I know that seems dumb with food, but it was there. Like, that was a rule. And so that type of stuff to me is stupid, right? Like, you should be able to do those things. That's just common courtesy, right? Somebody pays for you one time and you say, well, I'll get you the next time. And there is a next time and you repay the favor, right? Well, it's a dumb rule. So my rant there was that rule go away, and I believe it is. And then let the college athletes make money, right? They go to whatever university, they have the opportunity to do commercials, they have the opportunity to sign autographs, and it's, I don't know, $5. If you want to charge $5, take a photo, make the money. I'm all for it. You want to be a Twitch streamer and make money off of Twitch? You want to start your own YouTube channel? You want to do this? Go make the money, right? So I just hate the portal part where they can just leave whenever they want. Vegas sports gaming. The question is, why is Chester leaving? Yes, that's the thing here is I cannot find anything that says he was unhappy. I can't find anything that this is actually true. So that would be the question, right? Why is he leaving? And I know exactly where everybody's mind's going to go to. Is it because of Brad Underwood? That's exactly where it's going to go. And I'm really trying to follow my gut here, and my gut feeling is that this is not true. My gut feeling is maybe DeVries at West Virginia maybe reached out to him, and then it's leaked that he's reached out to him, and so this Twitter account is trying to stir the pot and say that he's coming because they reached out and because he's a good coach. Like, is going from Illinois as an assistant to West Virginia an upgrade? No, to me, no offense to West Virginia, I think you're going backwards. I think you would be going somewhere that new head coach is going to try to rebuild it now. You're going backwards. You're at a place now that seems pretty stable. Does it give you advancement to become a head coach going to West Virginia? I say no. I say that would not be the right move. That you would get a head coaching job better, I think, staying at Illinois, being around a rebuild and finally getting it there. And then you just went to the Elite Eight. I mean, Sweet 16 and Elite Eight. I mean, so to me, that's not the right move. I have no idea why he would leave. Is there something at West Virginia that I'm not seeing or that somebody knows that would advance his career even more? And it's not like he didn't play at Illinois, right? Like if he was a guy that Brad Underwood hired as an assistant and he gets an opportunity to get more responsibilities to maybe advance his career and he leaves, okay, like that happens all the time. But the fact that you played at Illinois, you're here, and then you're off, right? But my previous thought a few minutes ago was coaches have checklists for their career. They have a box and they have what they want to do, right? Is one of his boxes to check becoming the head coach at his alma mater at Illinois? Is that on the checklist, right? And so before Mr. Phillip, corrected me, and I thank him again if he's still watching. Thank you for correcting me on something that I said, and I appreciate that. Does he just see Brad Underwood staying here for a very long time, which is good for Illinois, right? Like if this is the thing where he's going to stay for a long time, cool. But does he stay at Illinois for 10 more years, 15 more years, waiting for that? Or does he try to add to his resume saying, okay, I came to Illinois, helped rebuild it. I have this resume and doing these things. I go to another school and I'm a part of that as well. So look, I can do this at different places. So when that Illinois job does become open, or when Brad Underwood is still at Illinois, another head job opens up and he takes that. And then when that Illinois job opens up, then he can say, okay, watch what I did. Is this a part of the plan, right? Now, it all just comes back to you played at Illinois, like this is your place, right? Vegas sports gaming. It doesn't make sense because Chester left Virginia Tech as an assistant coach to come to Illinois. Chester Frazier said coach at Illinois was his dream job. And I agree. And that's why this is so weird. And it's so, if it's true, again, nothing, I'm continuing, right? Like I'm on a tab, I'm refreshing, I'm looking, I don't see anything. I just keep going in and typing Chester Frazier, West Virginia, and I don't see anything besides that one tweet. I just there's nothing, right? Like I'm not seeing it besides the voice of Motown or whatever. If you go to their website here, Chester Frazier hired at West Virginia. Moments ago was confirmed by multiple sources now. Chester Frazier joined the West Virginia Mountaineers coaching staff and is an assistant coach. He's regarded as an outstanding coach and recruiter. Brian Wood said Chester Frazier is one of the brightest young stars in the coaching profession. He's a leader, competitor, a winner. He's achieved great success as a player here and as a coach at both Kansas State and Virginia Tech. His work ethic on the court and the recruiting trail helps him build relationships. Then it just goes to talk about him. So, I mean, it's not just the fact that this person tweeted it out. Now it's on their website, right? So hopefully for him, then it talks about him. It says, Brad Smith, the voice of Morgantown, is the most trusted, accomplished name in West Virginia sports journalism. So he's the most trusted. Mr. Phillip, thank you for still being here. Is this just a way to get a much-deserved pay raise at Illinois? It's only posts from one source. This is quite possible, right? Again, is it about money? So we know other schools have a little bit more resources than the University of Illinois. They are getting better, right? Like I think our athletic director, Whitman, is doing a fantastic job of trying to keep up with the other schools and sources of money and facilities and all that stuff. This could be a way like, hey, look at what I've done on the recruiting trail. Look what I've done as an assistant coach. I need a pay raise, right? This could be like, is this like him just entertaining the thought? And then this person, this most trusted voice of journalism for the West Virginia Mountaineers, allegedly, he could say that. I mean, good for him. Like, I appreciate the people that grind it out in this podcast world and stuff like that. But is this a way to try to have the upper end on Illinois and try to get money, right? And I already know what you guys are thinking. Like, what does he make, right? Like, to me, if I got paid $1 million to coach college basketball, I would be happier than, flies on pig crap, right? Like, I would be so incredibly over the moon. But there's also the market, and you look at your value, and, he deserves a pay raise and deserves these things. But if this is only one source, right, like, it's because it's not finalized that Chester Frazier and the actual West Virginia program hasn't said anything. That tells me that this is not official. If it's going to, if it's happening, it's not official, and they never want to say anything until it's official, right? Like Calipari didn't really say anything until it was finalized, right? Like you never say anything until it's written on the contract, right? Because Chester Frazier could easily tell them, "Yeah, I'm coming to West Virginia," and then it's posted out there like, "I'm going to West Virginia." But nothing's really signed yet. And then Illinois comes back and says, well, hey, we're about to give you a pay raise, right? Ooh, here we go. Alex King, as a West Virginia fan, voice of Morgantown is a terrible, terrible source. So you're a West Virginia fan. You're telling me that this guy, even though he put on his own website that he's the most trusted voice, which to me, that's a bold statement. Love to have Frazier, but I don't believe it. So you're just telling me that he's either doing this to be a troll. He got into it with some Illinois fan and is now trying to get back at them and stir the pot. Or like I said, is it possible that the head coach just reached out to him and he got wind of it and assumes that he would just go, right? Vegas Sports Gaming. Now this voice of Morgantown is running his mouth on Twitter talking about watch for an Amy Hansberry to follow him. West Virginia doesn't have more money than Illinois, and it's not a better program. That's why this is all sort of confusing, right? Like, I would feel that West Virginia and Illinois are like even, or Illinois might be better source. Alex King, he makes up news, fights with former players on Twitter, and yes, he is a huge troll, LOL. Okay. That's why I like doing this. Mr. Phillip corrected me. Vegas Sports Gaming is giving me things to think about. Mr. Alex King, thank you. You confirming that, because I don't follow this account. I've never seen it before until yesterday, right? I've never, ever encountered this before. Excuse me. Okay, so you confirming that he's a troll is, again, maybe he got wind. Like, well, first of all, I hope that it was getting wind that this guy maybe reached out to Chester Frazier, which is fine. Like, you could reach out to him all you want and do that stuff. That's part of your head coaching job, right? You're going to look at assistant coaches to see if you just can't get them to come with you, right? You have your guys, but sometimes you look at who's done really well, especially in the transfer portal recruiting era where recruiting's become more important than ever. And if he's done a good job, maybe you just reached out to him. This guy gets wind of it, and now he wants to put it out there, right? Phillip, Illinois is a better program than West Virginia. I agree. I know that, and any West Virginia fans, correct me if I'm wrong, with Bob Higgins, who I know it ended really badly and people have opinions. I just thought it was always cool that this guy is coaching in a, windbreaker and sweatpants before everybody else started doing it. And I thought that was awesome. Always thought it was funny. There was periods of time where they were decent at basketball, right? Like they had this period being a good program, right? And they've had flashes in the pan of their football programs and stuff, right? So, but from an Illinois basketball program, I do think that it's better, especially now. Illinois was in a bad place for years, and hasn't made the NCAA tournament for a long time. Brad Underwood comes, starts from the ground up to rebuild it, and now I think right now Illinois as a more stable program is better than West Virginia. So if this is true, something had to make Chester Frazier more angry, or it is just a way to kind of show that he is being looked at by other people and needs a pay raise for his efforts, right? Because these college coaches now are working harder than ever with this transfer portal stuff and the name, image, and likeness stuff. They are working now harder than they were before. And so this could be just that way. Phillip, the new West Virginia coach, DeVries, I'm probably saying his name wrong, was coaching Drake in Omaha when Illinois was there for the tournament. Would explain the connection being made. Perfect. Like maybe they did have a conversation, right? Like maybe they talked for a little bit. Maybe they know each other from something, because the coaching world can go very deep in your connections and everything else. Somebody who maybe knows him says, hey, if you're looking for a good recruiter and a good assistant coach that's going to come in and do great things, Chester Frazier could be your guy, right? And it doesn't hurt at all for him to reach out to him just saying, hey, I would love to talk about hiring you, blah, 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 blah. This voice of Morgantown got wind of it, and now he just wants to put out there immediately just because they've had maybe a conversation. Oh, he's coming. He's coming. So if it doesn't happen, I am going to become this guy's worst nightmare of tweeting that, hey, wait a minute. Like, here, if you guys don't believe me, and some of you guys do, follow it. Let me see. Share this for a second. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Brad Smith, the voice of Morgantown, is the most trusted, accomplished name in West Virginia journalism. He put that about himself? This is like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say Coach Steve in Illinois is the most trusted name in Illinois sports journalism. I am always right, and I get things right. I'm the most trusted voice. I'm going to start doing that. Why am I going to start doing that? Well, everybody can make things up about themselves, right? Like, what? Smith is the forecast permanent authority in West Virginia athletics and a lifelong fan. He graduated there. He resides in Morgantown most of the year, but then he had to put this on there. But has a home in Jacksonville, Florida, where he lives during the winter. Why would you put that about yourself on this website? I don't understand it. Oh, yes, I'm going to put this up there. Troll the troll. That's what I do. I do it all the time. People can call me a troll too, but I find stupid things like that, and then I like to stir it up a little bit, and I like to get them fired up. And the best thing is when I do that, so anybody that's new here watching this, the show is called the Coach Steve Show, and I didn't just add that coaching title just because. I've been a high school football coach for 14 and a half years. I'm going into my 15th year. I've coached I'm coaching high school basketball and softball. I've done track, I've done baseball. So I'm truly a coach, right? The first thing they do if I try to stir the pot is, "Oh, I thought you were a coach. You don't know shit. Shit for you don't left from right and all that stuff." That's their attack, right? So with this guy, I already know if it doesn't happen, I'll be like, I'm going to screenshot that and say, "Well, you're the most trusted thing, right?" And then you have to talk like I already have ideas, right? Like I can't. Like for example, Philip, if you're still here watching, I appreciate you. The fact that I came on here and was saying the wrong things and you came on and corrected me, if I was this guy, I probably would have freaked out and say that you're wrong and everything else. No, you're right. Like you were 100% right and you corrected me. And I appreciate that. Like that's what it needs is like a conversation. This guy would probably freak out. So it's going to be funny when this doesn't happen, or if this doesn't happen, I should say, because we just never know. It's going to be hilarious to go after this guy. I'm going to do it. So, yes, wrapping it up slowly here. I don't see why Chester Frazier would leave Illinois to go to West Virginia. Would it make more sense if he were to go to like Kentucky? Maybe because they have more resources and stuff like that. But then you're going down there and having that pressure of the Kentuckyism on you. Would it make sense for him to go to like a Duke, maybe North Carolina, maybe? Again, you'd have to look at the blue bloods of basketball and make that decision for yourself and your career. But Illinois, I think now is at a place where they can just continue to compete. This is probably just this guy trolling. They probably did have a conversation with him, and that was it. You would think by now of him putting that out there, we've heard something today, and it's morning time. It's almost 9 o'clock here in the morning, so it's still fresh. It's still new. So we'll see as the day goes on, or tomorrow even, or Monday, if more news of this comes out. But ultimately, the more we've talked this through, the more I don't see that this is true at all. Illinois is his dream place. So I just don't see Jim Coleman or Orlando Antuga going to Kentucky as assistant coach didn't seem to work well for them. I agree. So Chester Frazier, if he were to think about leaving, going, that's why like I have an episode talking about the possibility of Brad Underwood going to Kentucky. And I know he didn't. I know they hired Pope from BYU. I said this. Is there really blue bloods of basketball anymore? Because when we say blue bloods of like football and basketball, we're talking about their history. And then for some, like the continuum of that history, right? Like Alabama football was good back in the day. Then they had their little drop off. Then Nick Saban comes and it just continues and it's going to continue. They might be more considered of like a blue blood football. But with the transfer portal and everything else, is there really a true blue blood of basketball programs and stuff like that anymore? So I don't, like I said, maybe 10 years ago, that Kentucky job would have been more enticing because of recruiting high school kids more and everything else to that program because it's Kentucky, it's Duke, it's North Carolina. With this transfer portal, it's getting more to I don't know if it's quite an even playing field, but it's getting to that. So I don't know if that job was more enticing anymore than what it used to be because of this. And so I think that ultimately Chester Frazier, this is false. This is a false tweet. It's a false thing. And I just don't see him leaving Illinois to take the exact same job. Now, if he took a head job, you'd have to pause and consider that. But to leave Illinois where you're getting to the NCAA tournament, and now you just went to the Elite Eight, you're getting some decent transfers in right now, and you have some guys coming back. You're in a good position, and I just don't see him going. So ultimately, yep, I don't see him going. This is a troll, and I'm going to go after this guy. If it doesn't, I might do it today. I might go after him right now after this, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun to go after him a little bit. Probably get blocked, and that's fine, but it's whatever. But I just don't see him leaving. Just doesn't make sense. So hopefully, just business as usual. Chester Frazier stays. Um, but yeah, so we'll wrap that up. I appreciate all the engagement today. It was awesome. Um, you know, all you guys watching, mate, please just subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's really going to help it out. I appreciate people that watched on X as well. If you could just take 6 seconds to go subscribe to that YouTube channel, that'd be awesome. Guys that are watching, if you're interested, I did write a book. My plan is once I get to a certain number of subscribers on YouTube, I'll put a thing up on Twitter to submit your name. I do the spin wheel. I'll give out 2 free copies of my own dime, and send those out. So once I do that, please do that. And you're going to know when you follow at Coach_Steve72 and follow the Coach Steve Show. So follow those Twitter accounts to keep up with that. Check out other videos. I've talked to tons of high school coaches and college coaches and stuff like that. They put out some good little nuggets. So go check that out. This was awesome. Thanks to everybody that had the engagement and correcting me when I was stating the wrong things. I appreciate that. So thanks everybody for watching or listening. Go do all that stuff for me. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. Rate it, review, all that stuff. I appreciate everybody out there. Thanks for watching and or listening. This is Coach Steve. Chester Frazier is going nowhere, and we will see you guys next time.
Mm-hmm.